Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my transfer plans for the first proper double game week of the season, double game week 25, and then also going into blank game week 26 where my team is looking a bit of a disaster. If you do enjoy today's video and you get any use out of it, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So I'm recording this on Sunday evening, ready for a Monday morning upload, and therefore I've not seen the result of Chelsea and Crystal Palace, but I did hang on to Cole Palmer. So really there are very few players that can massively damage my rank, and really because Cole Palmer is so highly owned, there are very few players that can massively boost my rank. So I think where I'm at right now will be roughly where I am in the game week, and I have just slightly snuck in to the top 100k for the first time this season. So according to Fantasy Football Hub, I'm currently 99,881. I'm just inside the top 100k, and therefore it's about a 60k green arrow at the moment, and it's 78 points for Game Week 24. I would love to know down below in the comments, how many points did you get for Game Week 24? I'm pretty sure that for most of you, it came down to captaincy, and also, and I didn't think this would be the case, Arsenal assets. So do you know what? We'll start with Arsenal. Gabriel 12, Saka 15. Gabriel's been very interesting to own. He's got 17 points. Then I think he got 2, -1, and then 12. And I think there will be some people that benched him this week and maybe even either didn't own or benched him for the 17 points and then played him for the 2 and the -1. So that is the way FPL is. But Gabriel looks nailed, playing for the best defence in the league, as we'll discuss in the next section. And also, we've known for a while, Gabriel's attacking threat is absolutely brilliant. And yes, Saliba did pop up with a goal as well. And I think Saliba owners deserve that. But Gabriel is just brilliant from set pieces, and he'll continue to be as well. It's not just how good he is in the air, it's also his movement, and they seem to aim for him from set pieces. So to get a 12-pointer from Gabriel, truly wasn't expecting that. And in all honesty, wasn't really expecting a 15-pointer from Saka for a few different reasons. Saka this season hasn't really shown an explosive ability. West Ham aren't the worst defence in the league, although as we'll look at in a second, they're certainly not the best defence. And also, Saka isn't particularly good away from home. But he did take the penalty, and we've said for a while, whilst he won't take every penalty for Arsenal, he's certainly first choice, and also scored from open play too, and his data recently has been really good. So Gabriel and Saka carrying my team massively. The other player that did massively carry the team was Erling Haaland, and I was actually sat there watching the game with my girlfriend, and we were sat there both captaining Haaland, and we said at half-time, oh, maybe this was a mistake, because Haaland didn't look at it once again. But I think we sometimes forget that Haaland sometimes doesn't look at it. Even when he's at his very best, you will see very few touches from him. And then what you do get is when he gets a chance, usually, he takes it. And he really had 2 big chances in that game, and he took them both very, very clinically. And that is why it is so difficult to not captain Haaland in any given game week once he's fully fit. And I said it going into this game week, whilst Jota and Darwin both returned, I said, I have to see something that makes me really, really confident in someone else to ever go against Haaland captain, as boring as that is, because that's how good he is. And therefore, I think if you didn't captain him, it was probably one of those where you're like, yeah, maybe going forward, I am going to captain him. And obviously, a lot of people now, myself included, but this was the plan anyway, are definitely looking at triple captain Haaland in 25. Foden did blank. Obviously, De Bruyne was on the bench. We saw Walker on the bench as well. So City assets showing that they are real rotation risks. But both Foden and Alvarez still look pretty nailed at the moment to start pretty much every game, which is really good if you do own them. Outside of that, Liverpool all delivered, right? I got returns from Trent, Jota and Darwin, but a little bit disappointing, given that Trent obviously went off at halftime injured, and we'll discuss Trent throughout this video, don't worry. Jota and Darwin both getting a return, but limited bonus point, only 1 for Darwin, none for Jota. And in a game where you're bringing them in for Burnley at home, I don't want to be greedy. I've had a great week, but a little bit disappointing, absolutely. And if you captain them again instead of Haaland, probably disappointed as well. But at least they all return, because there is always that worry when you go big on a team against a team such as Burnley. You expect so much that it can go horribly wrong. And in all honesty, Burnley maybe deserved more. They had a hell of a lot of chances. They just didn't necessarily take them. And that's been kind of the story of Burnley's season. Outside of that, I think the only other thing to discuss maybe Dubravka. Newcastle are absolutely atrocious defensively. And as we'll look at in a second, so are West Ham. So I'm not really happy with my goalkeeper pairing. And then Porro and Richarlison both blanked. Spurs struggled a little bit against Brighton. And Brighton may feel a little bit hard done by not to get anything from that game, especially given they conceded in the last minute. But Richarlison in particular had a hell of a lot of chances again, or at least a couple of big chances, and he could have returned. So I'm very, very happy with Richarlison. Porro, once again, though, didn't look particularly attacking, and Spurs don't keep clean sheets. So I think if you sold Porro in 24, you're probably not too unhappy with that transfer. So My transfer, by the way, was Jota in for Gordon. I'm pretty happy with that. I think the team did pretty well. Palmer, if he returns, it could be an even better game week. I benched Watkins, maybe as the final thing to discuss, which I am extremely lucky. Watkins' data was actually better than most of the attackers in my team, and I think in any other game week, Watkins gets at least one return there and maybe bonus points as a result. So I think in a normal game week, Watkins comes away with a 9-pointer, and I'm sat there with a much smaller green arrow and pretty gutted that I chose to bench him. So very lucky there, but you need a bit of luck in FPL. So we've snuck inside the top 100k. The team did very well for Game Week 24. Still Palmer left to play. Let's now take a look at some interesting stats from the last 6 game weeks and what my team currently looks like for Game Week 25. So guys, before we take a look at my team for Game Week 25 with a specific eye on Game Week 26 as well, because my team's not looking great for that blank game week, I wanted to just discuss some stats from the last 6 game weeks because, as you know, I'm a very data-driven manager, but it can also just allow us to look at which teams and players have been performing quite well over the last 6 game weeks. I've kept it fairly basic this week. I'm just looking, I'm not looking at any specifically interesting stats. It's just who are the top players and teams for goal threat, for assist threat, and then also for defensive data as well, to see if we can pick up any things that maybe are going under the radar. And there are a few interesting things here. So firstly, the top 5 players in the league over the last 6 game weeks for non-penalty expected goals, Darwin and Saka are quite fairly at the top there. The only 2 players above 4 non-penalty expected goals. Darwin just about coming out on top at 4.18, but Saka has been brilliant. Again, that is non-penalty. So that's even removing the penalty that Saka had. Saka's data has been exceptionally good, and it's a reason that I'm just not looking to sell him. And I know there is a good chance that Saka blanks in 29, and he's not necessarily got the easiest fixtures over the coming spell, but I also think there are some pretty good ones in there. He's got Burnley. The fixture in Game Week 26 against Newcastle looked pretty tricky on paper ahead of time, but based on how Newcastle are defending, it's pretty good. He's got Brentford and Sheffield United in there as well, who aren't 2 of the best defence in the world, again, as we'll look at in a second. So I actually think the fixtures are fine, and this is a sign, I think, that you can over-fixate on doubles. Whilst I will go big on doubles and blanks and making sure that I can get the most players out at all points, it is worth just keeping really good assets, and for me, Saka is one of those. Richarlison is still top 3 for non-penalty expected goals. His data's dropped slightly in the last couple, but it is still pretty good. Alvarez is still in there as well, and again, this is non-penalty. So remove the penalty that he scored. He's still got really, really good attacking data. And then Watkins does sneak in there at 2.67, but you can see quite a bit below Darwin and Saka. So the real thing I wanted to point out there, Darwin, Saka, Richarlison, 3 players that I own, of course. Very, very happy to have them. When we then look at the top 5 players for expected assists, which is obviously creativity, there is one player that is just leagues ahead, and that is Ødegaard. And he really has stepped it up lately. And it's one of the reasons I think that we are starting to see, along with Declan Rice, who's been very, very good, of course, especially from set pieces. But Ødegaard is one of the reasons that I think Arsenal are starting to attack better. And it's one of the reasons I think Saka's data has been better. One of the brilliant things about Arsenal, attacking-wise, last season was the link-up between Ødegaard and Saka. And I just don't feel like we've seen that this season. Ødegaard looks a little bit deeper. And then he's also looked a little bit more central at points. It's when Ødegaard and Saka link up on that right-hand side, they play very well. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more of that. And as you can see here, even if we're just looking at the data, Ødegaard at 3.05 expected assists over the last 6. He's just remarkably good. The next closest, believe it or not, is Darwin. And so the second thing I wanted to point out is that Darwin and Saka are the only 2 players that are top 5 for both goal threat and assist threat. So Darwin is first for goal threat and second for assist threat, and Saka is second for assist threat and second for goal threat and 4th for assist threat. So the 2 of them are accumulating loads of chances themselves, but also creating chances. Darwin and Saka, there is no chance you sell them. And I mean, obviously you wouldn't sell Darwin now anyway, but if you're thinking about, is it worth taking a hit for Darwin going into the double? This tells you what my answer will be. If you're going to ask me that question on the deadline stream, I will point to this and say, Darwin is due something big at some point. Now, of course, the questions come of, is he going to finish the chance he creates? No, he's clearly not an exceptional finisher, and he clearly won't finish them all. But you get this many chances and you'll finish some of them. And you create this many chances as well. And some of your teammates will finish them as well. So I really like Darwin. And again, big shout out to Saka, who's not going under the radar because he's returned quite a few times recently, but just goes to show that it's not luck. He's getting the chances and he's creating them too. Pascal Gross on here for assist threat 2 at 1.82. He's also on penalties in the absence of João Pedro. Pascal Gross is a great player to own. Really good for blank Game Week 26 too. His minutes are brilliant, so I love Pascal Gross. And then Foden just about sneaks into the top 5 for assist threat as well, which is really good news, obviously, going into the double game week. So those are sort of some individual stats. Again, the special shout out for me is to Darwin and Saka for featuring on both. And also shout out to Erdegaard for his creativity, because that has been really good for Arsenal recently. Then I just wanted to look at basically the best and worst defences in the league over the last 6. So here we're just focusing on non-penalty expected goals conceded. The reason I'm going non-pen is because conceding a penalty is the mistake of one defender. I don't think that necessarily represents how good or bad a defence has been. If on a consistent basis they're conceding penalties every week, yeah, there's something to be said there for defensive areas. But in general, I just want to look at how many chances are they conceding from open play. So by far and away, the worst team in the league for non-penalty expected goals conceded, you've guessed it, it's been spoken about a lot, is Newcastle at 16.8. And I've said before, even if you remove that Liverpool game, which is obviously just ridiculous, they're still defending really, really badly. They are the worst defence in the league at the moment. And that has to just be ingrained in my mind, because I can't wrap my head around it. Again, I was looking at Newcastle for Arsenal in 26 and going, oh, it's not a great fixture. It's the best fixture in the league at the moment. Newcastle just aren't defending well. And it's been going on for long enough across the season now that you just have to say this is not the same defence. And so I'm sat there with Dubravka. You may be sat there with a Newcastle defender. It's worth selling them at some point, because it's like, how long do you wait before you expect that to go back to how it used to be? And before just saying they're just not that same defence. So a little bit disappointing, but yeah, they're just so poor. And then the second worst defence in the league is West Ham over the last 6. So if you are like me, sat there with Dubravka and Areola, you are sat there with the 2 goalkeepers from the 2 worst defences in the league. So it's not great. And so when people were laughing at people that went out and bought Kaminsky last week, it doesn't look that bad when you consider they probably sold Areola or Dubravka. And when I'm looking at who to start this week, well, they're both as bad as each other. So not great there. And then to finish off the bottom 5 defences in the league over the last 6, it's Burnley, Brentford and Wolves. Burnley kind of makes sense. It's what you would expect. Sheffield United not in this, by the way, which is remarkable. Brentford at 10.5 and then Wolves at 10.4. Brentford, a defence that across the season have done fairly well, but have been a little bit poorer recently. But maybe some of their fixtures explain that. So those are the 5 worst defences in the league. The 5 best defences in the league, 4 of them make a lot of sense, especially 3 of them. So Arsenal, very, very clearly the best defence in the league. We've seen that again with the 6-0 win against West Ham. Gabriel Saliba getting even more points. And if you own Gabriel and Saliba, you're just not selling them until you really have to. And you may even decide to carry a Gabriel Saliba through blank game week 29, even if they don't play. They are just ridiculous value. Look at this. Over the last 6 games, 3.4 non-penalty expected goals conceded. They're just so good. Man City, the second best defence in the league. Again, makes a lot of sense. And Liverpool being in the top 5. Again, makes sense. We know that these 3 defences, Arsenal, City and Liverpool, are very good. But the other 2 teams maybe less so. Bournemouth do continue to defend really, really well. And across the season now, they've been very good. And in the way that I said, you have to change your expectations. Newcastle now have been defending for long enough in such a poor manner that they are now, in my opinion, a bad defence. Bournemouth have been defending so well now for such a long period of time that they have to be considered a good defence. And I think then you start looking at, not only is Solanke worth considering for 27 and 28, when obviously they play Burnley, Sheffield United and Luton in 2 game weeks, but also Senesi and Neto in goal. So it's maybe worth even considering some Bournemouth defenders. So Bournemouth to be considered. And then the team that really shocked me here, and I've just brought up their fixtures because I just assumed, therefore, it must be the fact that they've just had really good fixtures in the last 6. They've not overly. It's actually Nottingham Forest are the 3rd best defence in the league at 6.6. And their fixtures have been Newcastle twice. And again, granted, they've not been great defensively, but they've been okay going forward. They've played Man United, Brentford away, Arsenal at home, and Bournemouth away. They're actually pretty difficult fixtures. And in those games, they've conceded 0.7 XGC, 1.2. They only conceded 1.2 XG to Arsenal, 0.9 to Bournemouth, 0.4 to Newcastle in this game week. Like, they have been defending very, very well. So Nottingham Forest defenders, especially given that they might play Luton in game week 29, may be worth considering. Now, the fixtures coming up for them are a bit of a mixed bag. The next 3 aren't ideal, but after that, they go on a very nice run. So maybe, if you're looking for a cheap defender, worth considering. So those are some stats. I've spoken for quite a long time there about some stats, but those are some interesting stats for me, at least, from the last 6. Maybe starts to help you think about some of the players and defences that you should be looking at. Let's now take a look at my team for game week 25. So looking ahead to Game Week 25, this is the way that my team is currently looking. And as always, this is only my transfer plans video. In a few days, probably around Thursday, I'll do my team selection video where I'll talk about what I'm doing in more detail. Once I've had a bit more time to digest what's going on. And also when we get some updates around injured players. And injured players is really the frustration for me at the moment because the team was looking so good. Let's say there were no injuries to my team. I was going into 25 with double City, and in my opinion, the two best City players in Foden and Haaland. I was going in with triple Liverpool, and in my opinion, again, probably the three best Liverpool in Trent, Jota, Darwin. And my single game week players were Watkins, Saka, Gabriel, Porro, Richarlison, and one of Dubravka or Areola. I mean, it was arguably, you would maybe chuck in a couple of other double game week players like Tony and maybe De Bruyne, but it was arguably even as good as some of the free hit teams that I was seeing potentially flying around. However, it's not a free hit team. I need to think about future weeks, and I've also got some potential issues for Game Week 25. So the elephant in the room is Trent being injured and what that does to my team, because it's very, very tricky to know what to do with him. I think I will just go as far as saying if there is any chance he plays even the Luton game, even if he's confirmed out for Brentford, but there's a chance he plays the Luton game, I'm kind of leaning towards trying to keep him, just simply because I don't think there are that many defenders that have a really good fixture in 25 that I think would upgrade my team. And I'm also confident definitely start in 26. Because you could say sell Trent for an Ake or a Gvardiol, but even if they start both in the double, which isn't overly likely for any City defender, are you then confident they start in 26? And I really don't want another issue for 26. So, and then you could say, well, just transfer him to a single game week player. And I could do, but then I'm like, if Pau Torres plays, but Pau Torres got a fine fixture. And then even so, which defender do I want for 25 that has a good enough fixture that I want to play them, that also plays in 26 that I'm confident about, and then maybe serves me well for the future too? And again, am I that sure that Trent's definitely out? I think if Trent is confirmed 100% out, if they come out and say, yep, he's really badly re-aggravated, that injury is definitely out, then Trent probably does need to be sold for me. And I could just try and play Pau if he's going to play, and we'll discuss Pau Torres in a second, or I just make the transfer in 25, which probably does make more sense. But I'm really not sure who I want. I'd love to know down below, if you're in the position that I am, who'd you go to? Now, I know a lot of people say just do Trent to Virgil van Dijk, right? Attack the double, get your third Liverpool asset back, and then deal with Van Dijk in 26. And I think that is an absolutely fine option, and it may well be what I'd do. I may just go, do you know what? I'm going to go all out for 25. And I don't mind taking a -8 hit in 26. I really don't, because you're getting players for a blank game week. So it's a cliche saying, but it's more like a -2 rather than a -4. Because just through appearance points alone, if they get 2 points, the player that you're bringing in has only then lost you 2 points, even if they blank, if that makes sense. So I kind of do like the idea of bringing in Van Dijk for Trent, and especially given that he has such a nice double, and we know that he'll play both. My issue is, let's say I do Trent to Van Dijk. That means going into 26, rather than the planned 2 free transfers, I would have 1. And these would be my blankers. Porro, Trent, Richarlison, Jota, Darwin, maybe Taylor, Palmer, and then maybe Pau. Even if Taylor is fine, which I don't know, I don't really trust company at the moment, and then even if Pau Torres is starting by then, which there is a chance, then I'm still going in with 6. And that is assuming that Taylor and Pau Torres are fine. If Pau Torres still isn't back into the 11, or we're still not sure, and if Taylor isn't, I am going in with 8 blanking players and then only 1 free transfer. Given that I can only bench 3, and I would only have 1, for a -4 hit, then I could get to 6 blanking players. Well, this is a worst case scenario, of course, which means I would only be fielding 8 players, which isn't great. With a -8, I could get to 9. Right, so you can start to see that, yes, if Taylor and Pau Torres are fine, then it looks a lot better. For a -4 hit, I could probably fill 10, or for a -8, 11. But if they're not fine, and if I pick up any other issues in my team, I could be in a position where I'm having to take a monster hit, or I'm fielding 8 or 9 players, or I'm forced into a free hit or a wild card. Now, I don't think the Trent transfer is going to massively impact my team, but I'm just hesitant to bring in a player that either I don't know if they'll play in 26, i.e. a Manchester City defender, or a defender that is a rotation risk, or bring in another player that definitely blanks in 26, whether that be a Van Dijk or someone like a Doughty. Now, the only players that therefore double in 25 that I know will play in 26 are probably Brentford defenders, someone like a Reguilon or a Pinnock. But then the issue with that is it's a terrible double this week. I don't really want to play them. They could end up on minus points. But I suppose Pinnock has some goal threat, Reguilon has some assist threat, and then they do have a fixture in 26 and 29. So long-term planning-wise, Trent to a Brentford defender makes a bit of sense. But I could also look at maybe a Wolves defender or something like that for the long term, of course. Or maybe look at just bringing in, I don't know, like a Manchester United defender and maybe just banking on the fact that they could very well play in Game Week 29. We don't know that, but if they lose to Forest, they could. So I've got a few different options there, but I guess what I'm saying is that for me and my team, I need to think about 26. And therefore, once you start thinking about 26, which rules out Liverpool and City probably, I don't think there's an obvious replacement for Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I guess let's wait and see what happens. At the time of you watching this, we may already have an update. It's probably not looking good, but I'm hopeful that he may get some minutes against Luton or that Pau Torres will be available and I just play him instead. And then maybe I still carry the 2 free transfers over to Game Week 26 because when I look at the rest of the team, Foden, Haaland, Darwin, Jota, in my opinion, the 4 best players to own for double Game Week 25. So they're great. Obviously, Gabriel and Saka, based on what we've just seen, great. Porro and Richarlison, I've just spoken about the fact that Wolves have not been good defensively recently, and I think both of them do have the attacking threat, so they're fine. Dubravka and Areola, they stink, both of them, right? They're playing for 2 bad defenses, but not an issue this week. And then I've got Ollie Watkins against Fulham away. So, like, the team is really in a good position. My only concern then is around that defensive spot. On Pau Torres, as far as we know, he's been in full team training now for well over a week, but he didn't start once again against Manchester United. And in my opinion, I was expecting to go back into the starting 11 in place of Clement Lenglet. I am just slightly worried, number one, that the injury is still aggravating him slightly, or potentially that he's just not clearly first choice now, and that maybe Emery is quite happy with Lenglet. I would be surprised if that's the case, because they've not been defending overly well recently, and Pau Torres is definitely, well, he was at least, by far and away their most nailed defender before the injury. So I'm still hopeful that Pau Torres will be fit or will be available to start for the Fulham game. And if not then, hopefully in Game Week 26, because I really do need him. If he is available this week, it of course makes my decision a lot easier that I don't have to sell Trent. So I know I've just rambled a lot there. I've rambled for 7 minutes basically just about the Trent spot. But obviously that's the major decision to make for me. The other issue that I have in my team is Charlie Taylor. So what I could do instead is if Charlie Taylor is ruled out, I could potentially remove him instead because he's still going to be an issue for 26 as well. And also he plays for Burnley anyway. So I'm not really expecting much anyway. But maybe if I want to keep Trent and then remove Taylor, I have that option as well. But I guess it makes sense if Trent is a doubt to just remove the more expensive player, especially again, given that he blanks in 26. So I'm not entirely sure what the plan is at the moment. But in terms of the rest of the team, it's fine for 25. What I'm going to do in this final section then is just show you what my team looks like for Game Week 26 as things stand, the possible transfer plans based on what we know, and then also going into sort of 27, 28, and 29, roughly what I'm thinking about doing with my team. So guys, thought I'd jump over on Fantasy Football Hub and just take a look at what my team looks like going into that very dodgy blank Game Week 26, then just some rough kind of plans for 27, 28, and then just a rough idea again about if all things go as they are at the moment, what my team would look like for Game Week 29 based on the projected fixtures. But of course, this is really just for a bit of fun and entertainment and hypothesizing. This isn't going to be overly valuable. Please don't click off, but it's going to be overly valuable given the fact that anything could happen, like injuries, shock results in the FA Cup, which affect blank Game Week 29, etc., etc. But let's say in 25, I roll the transfer. I probably won't. I'll probably have to sell Trent. But if I sell Trent, I would have 1 free transfer and 1 more player for 26. And if I don't, I would have 1 less player for 26, but 2 free transfers. So it doesn't actually affect my 26 team too much either way. So, like I said, what I'm currently sat with at the moment in Game Week 26 is a definite blank for Trent, Jota, Darwin, Richarlison, Porro, and Palmer. So only 6 players don't have a fixture, which is good, right? Because you sell 3 of them, you can field 11. But of course, like I said, I've got some issues around, is Pau Torres going to be starting anytime soon? I'm less worried about him because I think he will be. I'm more worried about Charlie Taylor, though. So I think, let's say 7 players blanking and 2 free transfers. So if I take a -4, I can get to 10. Or if I take a -8, I can get to 11, assuming that Pau is fine. I'm going to probably say that it's very likely for me that I'll take the -8, given that it's a blank. And like I said, if I bring in a player and they only get 2 points, then that hit's only cost me 2. So I am more likely than not to take a -8. And I know people will say you should have planned better, but I'm attacking Game Week 24 and 25. So I think the points gained will hopefully outweigh it. But anyway, the plan at the moment would be definitely to sell triple Liverpool and then probably Charlie Taylor, maybe Palmer. I think probably at the moment it would be Charlie Taylor. So let me get Darwin into the starting 11 quickly. The bench will be probably Dubravka, Porro, Richarlison, Palmer. And then I'm looking at something like, but it could be genuinely any number of transfers. Solanke in, and before you say anything, I know he's got City at home, but I want him for the future. I'm then going to look at probably something like, and you're going to hate this, Jota to Fernandes or Garnacho, given that they have Fulham at home in Game Week 26, and there is a chance they play in 29. So I'm probably looking at a Man United mid. I could probably also look at bringing in another player, maybe someone like, and there's two options here, a Wolves midfielder, like a Hwang or a Neto, or potentially a West Ham player. So if I just quickly show you Kudus, the reason we like Kudus is he's confirmed to have a fixture in 29, and outside of that, it's Forest, Brentford, Everton, Burnley, and then the Villa game. So Kudus maybe doesn't have as great of a fixture in game week 25. And obviously his data isn't quite as good as the likes of Fernandes and Hwang, but he maybe creates less of an issue in 29. So I'm sort of going back and forth, but let's say Kudus just because I think it will create less issues for me. And then basically that Trent position will probably be Reguilon or Pinnock. Again, with 29 in mind, and also a decent fixture this week. I'm going to say Reguilon. Fantasy Football Hub haven't updated his minutes. They've got him as not fully nailed. But for all intents and purposes, that could be, let's just say Pinnock for now then, just to appease Fantasy Football Hub. But that could be Reguilon if his minutes look secure enough. So that's the -4. If Taylor's fine, it will stop there. And then outside of Taylor, I'm not really entirely sure what I'm doing with this spot here. I could look at another Aston Villa defender, but I just don't know who's going to be fully nailed alongside Pau Torres. Outside that, it could be another Brentford defender, but their fixtures just aren't good enough outside of the blank game week 29, and obviously the fixture this week. So let's just leave it as it is for now. But that's a -4 with the 2 free transfers, of course. And if Taylor's not available, it'll either be before the -8, I'll remove Taylor, or I'll just go in with 10 players. So you can see my team is not looking good. Absolutely not looking good for game week 26. But it's kind of like you have to sacrifice some game weeks. And if you wanted to attack 25, unless you're playing a free hit or wild card in 26 and you get very lucky with injuries, you're always going to struggle in some of the surrounding weeks. So let's just click make transfers there. And then say that's roughly the team for 26. In 27, I'll just optimize the team because you can see like I don't really need to make a transfer. Assuming that all of the players that I have available are fine, the team is looking pretty impeccable. But I know that Heung-min Son is a player that I'm going to want instead of Foden for probably 29. And given that Foden goes on a 2-game run of Manchester United, Liverpool, and also Brighton, and I think Spurs have a slightly better fixture run, and I think Son's a better asset. I am sort of semi-tempted in 27 to just bin off Foden and bring in Son then. Given the issues that I might have in and around that, let's say I pick up a couple of injuries, maybe that isn't a priority transfer. That's sort of what I'm penciling in at the moment, is to then have triple Spurs from this point onwards. So Porro, Richarlison, sorry for the loud beep outside, Porro, Richarlison, and Son going into Game Week 27 triple up. And then, of course, they have a fixture in 29. So that's the 1 free transfer in 27. That means that going into Game Week 28, I would have 1 free transfer. But, of course, this is a week where Bournemouth and Luton have a double game week and have a really nice double game week at that. Now, between Game Week 26 and Game Week 27, we are going to get the FA Cup 5th round results. There is a chance that teams such as Bournemouth could play in Game Week 29. There's a chance that Manchester United could play in 29. There is, of course, a small chance that City, Liverpool very small chance that they could play in 29. So it's very difficult at this stage now to start planning. But based on the current projections, I think the plan at the moment would be to not go too heavy on Bournemouth. Because at the moment, Bournemouth are more likely than not to blank. And at the time of me recording this, Luton are more likely than not to have a fixture. So I think it would be sticking with just Solanke and probably looking to bring in 2 Luton assets. And so I think because Pinnock's got a fixture, because Powell's got a fixture, and because Porro and Taylor have a fixture, I would be looking at this point to briefly drop Gabriel. So I'd probably be looking at Gabriel to Doughty. And then I also have the option of maybe an Adebayo or a Morris, depending on who is more nailed on at that point and who is performing better. And it would probably be for Haaland, right? Because I couldn't sell Watkins because he has a fixture next week. And I couldn't sell Solanke here because Solanke, he obviously has the double game week this week. So it would either be bringing in Morris or Adebayo for Haaland, or the other option is I go for like a Barkley instead. It's good. It's difficult to know what I would do at this stage, but given the fixture that Palmer has in game week 30 against Burnley at home, I wouldn't mind hanging on to Palmer. And therefore, let's just say for now, I know it sounds crazy, I do something like Haaland to Morris. I would probably captain Solanke this week, and therefore that would be for a -4 hit, Doughty and Morris in for Gabriel and Haaland, which I know sounds ridiculous on paper, but you got to attack the doubles. So that's another -4 hit. Hope you're still with me. Going into game week 29, this is roughly what the team looks like at the moment. And I'll count how many players based on current projections I have for blank game week 29 without obviously making any transfers or taking a hit in 29. We would be looking at, let me get Areola into the team. Areola has a fixture. So Areola, Doughty is projected to have one. Pedro Porro, Taylor if he's fit and I still have him. Son, Richarlison, Kudus, Watkins. And if we just scroll down to the bench, Morris, Powell, Pinnock. I have 11 players based on current projections taking 2 hits across the few game weeks that I've just spoken about in game week 29. Now, it won't plan out this way. I'll have injuries. There will be upsets in the 5th round of the FA Cup. I can almost guarantee it. For example, just as an example, if Chelsea lose to Leeds, then Chelsea and Arsenal have a fixture in 29. And then I'd have even more players here, and it wouldn't be very difficult. If Manchester United lose to Forest, Manchester United play against Sheffield United in game week 29, which would be absolutely ridiculous. So there are different things that could happen. It's difficult to plan out exactly, but I hope you can see that 26 is going to be a rough week for me. It really is. It's going to be a hit, and it's not even going to be a good week after the hit. Like, my team doesn't even look good after the hit. But then the rest of the game weeks look pretty good. I won't need to play a free hit or wildcard in and around game week 29 because the team looks very good. And therefore, from game week 30 onwards, I'm going to have a free hit wildcard and bench boost. So if I can get into game week 29 and come out of 29... still in the top 100k, maybe even pushing top 50k, with 3 of the most powerful chips still in hand, I think I'm going to be in a really good position. So I'll leave it there because it's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes, but hopefully that was helpful. And yeah, let me know down below, the question I'm asking you here, triple captain, bench boost, or nothing in game week 25, what is the chip that you're currently looking to play? So guys, there are my early thoughts and transfer plans around double game week 25, obviously at the start of the week, but I'll update my thinking throughout the week. There'll be the game week preview, the team selection, deadline decisions, and of course a live stream as well. We may even have another bonus video in there as well. If you did enjoy today's video and you're excited for some double game week 25 content, please smash that like button. And if you've already watched to here and you're not yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.